Great.
I gotta like catch up with my emails. So,
Cool.
but yay! I'm so excited to meet you. You must be Brandon.
Yes, nice to meet you, Liz.
Yeah, and
Likewise,
so
coming
nice
with
to see
you.
your face.
I know, I miss you.
I miss you too.
Yeah.
Hello.
And this is Leslie. Leslie, this is Liz.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
I
And Liz is,
realized that
yeah,
over my
Liz is in the Bay Area, and she's a good friend of Yvette's. So we've been talking about trying to get a training together, and we're like, let's just go for it. We'll just do impromptu on the spot and try to cover some things. If you guys, I don't know if you have about an hour. They usually, Leslie knows. Trainings run about an hour, hour and a half sometimes, but we'll try to keep it to an hour. I know we got a bunch of things to do, so yeah. If this works for everybody, I'm glad you guys were able to hop on.
Sounds good.
Cool, sounds good. So some of what Yvette and I were kind of talking about is just what would be most helpful right now. So I don't know if you guys want to share just any specific areas that you would like to, whether we cover it all today or a part of it today, touch on it at some point. And we can try to do this if you guys want to do it on a weekly. Maybe we pick a time for an hour each week and then just do a different topic and kind of keep building on it, because there's definitely certain areas in your business that once you master them, everything just comes together and gets a lot easier. You have a better structure in your day in terms of knowing, okay, what should I be doing in the mornings? What should I be doing in the afternoons? So scheduling sometimes is probably one of the most challenging things that I've noticed from the agents managing the Wood Ranch office. Was probably the biggest issue, as well as doing a lot of recruiting and coaching as well. It's the most common thing. So any specific areas that would be helpful for anybody that's on this call here?
I'll jump in.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd like to make a shift into this whole post-COVID
Okay.
business. I think that that's kind of just like the really vague way to put it, is just because, right, like this is not going to change. A lot of what we do is not going to change, and
Right.
I want to make sure that I'm ahead of the curve on that one.
Okay.
A lot of my business, most of my business, came from open houses, and
Yep.
obviously with that being gone, I had to make that. I had to pay Zillow. It's
Yeah.
so painful, but it has actually done immensely for my business. So I hate to concede to them, but I did. But obviously, like that's also something that I don't want to rely on heavily to get business from here on out. So I assume that open houses will come back eventually, but I also don't want to spend every weekend in an open house.
Right.
So so I think that getting leads and getting business is probably going to be like the first half of 2021.
Okay.
I'm trying to like forecast for next year is really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then do you set like business goals? Do you do where you do a business plan for the year for 2021? Do you put all that together? You're with Compass, right?
I am.
Oh, that's good. It's all good.
It's so funny because so I'm getting my broker's license. As a matter of fact, I just finished my last class yesterday and I did my license. So I'm like there. So I'm hoping to get that done by the end of this year. And then kind of try to work with either my broker now or find a broker that is more on my same path. And I'm so bummed because my girlfriend just texted me this morning and she's like, they're opening Compass in Hawaii and I'm trying to move there. And so I'm like, shit, like, dang it, like, should I move now or should I just stay with Compass? But we'll see about that. But
well, what's so great question too on post-COVID business, because there's definitely a shift. And there are some serious teams that I know Yvette's aware of that were with the previous company we were with. And that's all they did were open houses in terms of generating all their business and door knocking, and Leslie, she's worked with us for about 3 years. And how long have you been in the business now, Liz?
3 years.
Okay, so about the same. So that's great. So I know Leslie has been very successful also door knocking, open houses, in terms of generating business, meeting people and doing it. And it's been a huge shift and a huge change because that was her wheelhouse, right? That's where she met people. And she, was definitely braver than most, especially when it came to door knocking. And both of those sources were completely taken out. So we do internet leads. We do pay-per-click. I've done Zillow in the past as well. Very expensive. I've had a good return on investment with it, but it took us a while before we can kind of crack that egg open. Like it, regardless. And Ken Gretsch is another guy. You'll probably hear his name come out pretty often because he mentored myself quite a bit. He mentored Leslie.
He works
also
with my mom.
Yeah, worked with Robin. We all worked in the same office. That's actually how we all came together. And I recruited Leslie when she was starting out as a new agent at Prospecting School. And that's also some of the things that I'm going to teach. So I've done a lot with Mike Ferry. I've been coached a lot by Mike Ferry, which is huge, especially as you try to get to an area, because you can buy your business, which is paying for marketing, paying for leads, right? You can generate it that way. It's pretty expensive, especially Zillow. Zillow is one of the most expensive, but they have such a market share that it's, you kind of, if you don't have another source, it's key to be able to tap into that. And I still have a hard time not spending money. I don't know how long it's been, but because we have a good amount of internet leads coming through the pay-per-clicks, that we're not staying on top of that I'm not going to spend any more money on internet marketing until I know that we're doing what we should be doing with that. And even before that, my first bucket, if you want to call it that, is going to be sphere of business, right? My sphere of influence, past clients, people we're in touch with. And that to me is the most consistent, the most just reliable, because you already know these people. They already trust you. They already like you. And starting out, it's tough to create that base, because you'll have a certain sphere. And I don't know, do you have a decent database, or what would you say roughly is your sphere right now, Liz?
Oh, I don't like people, so I don't like. I'm constantly
How many houses did you sell last year?
12.
So you have at least 12.
Good job.
How many did you sell this year so far?
After I close all these, I think 10.
Okay,
Nice.
so that's 10 more. Well, okay, yeah, Bobby and Suju and your mom don't really count because they're
So,
but they still count. They're still your spirit.
I
have
know.
You have your brother, you have your aunt, uncle, you have your mom, you have your dad, and then all of your clients.
Yeah.
And you have Jesse and Jesse now.
I know, but like,
Aaron?
okay, so in my head, like if I look, every stinking realtor has like 1,000 friends on Facebook, and I have like 200 because every 6 months I go in and I start deleting people. I'm like, I don't care about your stuff. Like, it doesn't matter to me.
But
if it wasn't for being a realtor, I wouldn't have a Facebook. So,
Yeah, true.
so my sphere is very tight, and I think I purposely didn't hit up a lot of them when I first started, because I didn't want them to be my guinea pigs.
Right.
I felt like, no pressure. And it's nice now, like, it's true. Jesse and Aaron, they're personal friends of mine, and they came to me, which was really nice, because then I didn't, feel like I was, really guinea pigging them. So that's starting to pick up. But I think that's like one of, not the drawbacks, but kind of the drawbacks to my personality is that, right, like I don't want to push people into working with me.
But
like
she will when she's right. I tell you what, if she thinks she's
don't call
right,
me out.
she will push you. So they
Sure.
just need to open that door and she will burst through it.
Oh yeah. Like if
Well,
you give me entrance, I'll do it. But like I'm not gonna sit there and bang on your, your virtual door. Like door knocking, I'll do that. Straight up. Leslie, I feel you. Like if you're come to the door, but like friends, right? Sphere, I don't want to ever make them feel like, hey, just because you know me means you need to use me. Like
Right.
I don't like doing that.
And it's I can relate with that, especially starting. So I started when I was 22. I'm 38 now. I've been doing this for 16 years. Second generation of the business. Early on, hated door knocking. Was okay at open houses, and actually that's probably where I put a decent amount of my business together, was through open houses early on. But I was not pushy at all. And I was, I guess, also the same way. I didn't want people to think I was friends with them just for business, right? Just for real estate. So I went out of my way to kind of like push it away almost, instead of embrace it or try to ask for the business through friends and through that network. At a certain point, you're going to come to the realization when you see that it drives you crazy to see somebody that you care about working with somebody else, because you know they're not going to look out from the same way that you do. So it's just flipping it in your own mind to start with, that number one, you are the best at what you do. There's two fundamental beliefs, and this is actually part of the training, if you want to call it. It's mindset, right? One, you need to know you're the best person for the job. You have to believe it down to the core. Because if you don't believe that, going into a listing presentation, going into meeting a new buyer, going into any type of situation where you're going to solidify that confidence, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a leader. They're looking for you to lead them and guide them through one of the most complex processes that are out there. One of the top 5 most stressful things that anybody goes through is selling real estate. And Yvette and I were just talking about this earlier today. I said, our job is to grow as a leader, grow in our influence. And the more influence we have, and that's what leadership is, that's what John C. Maxwell defines it as, is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So as you grow in your influence, you will attract more and more people, more and more clientele. When you meet people, there's going to be an attraction that they want to get to know you. They want to work with you. They want to be your friend. All these different things start happening because you grow as a leader, and that's your ability to communicate. It's your ability to connect with people. It's your ability to create that trusting environment so that they know you know what you're talking about and they're willing to follow your lead. But it's a very awkward process in real estate of people trying to figure out, because they know we get paid very large commissions for helping them sell real estate. And so I guess the first question is, what is the difference between leadership, manipulation, and persuasiveness? And I'll ask Leslie, because I know you've heard the question. It's been a while. What's the difference between those three? Leadership, manipulation, and persuasion.
It's intent.
It's intent. And tell me more what you mean by that.
So in leadership, your intention is to lead your client in the best way possible. Manipulation, I mean, you can guide your client into doing something that they wouldn't have if you hadn't suggested it, but it's your intentions with them and your intentions on what the outcome should be for their
is a manipulation, is that a good intention by the person who's manipulating, or a bad intention?
It can be a good intention.
It can be good, but is it, if you manipulate somebody, when they say buyer's remorse or somebody feels they got sold something, that's manipulation, right? That's for my own personal benefit. I'm the person who's manipulating the situation. It's for my gain, not your gain, right? The other person that I'm manipulating.
Right. So it's not good.
Right, no. It's the exact same skill set. The skills are the same. Manipulation, persuasion, and leadership is the exact same skill set. You can get better by practice. You can get better by understanding the science of it, right? Mm-hmm. And be very effective as a manipulator. At the end of the day, the intent is the right answer. If my intent is to do something for personal gain and not for that person's gain, that's manipulation. For persuasion, I could be doing something for their best interest, even though it's not my best interest. I actually, like if I'm recruiting, I talk somebody into joining another company, even though my goal is to recruit them, it's because I know it's in their best interest. That's persuasion. But it's still helping them understand it and getting them to cut off procrastination and taking action, right? Now, leadership is something for both of our game. That's what real estate is. It's commissions, very large commissions that we get paid to do what we do, right? But we have to do something that's in both parties' best interest. And if I lead them through the process, the better I am at leading them through the process, the better I can get them to cut off procrastination and take action. And then from there, we both gain. I get paid a very good commission because I'm worth that commission, and they get what they want. They either get the house that they're looking for, or if they're selling their house, they're going to net the most money for the sale of their home. So does that make sense, Liz?
Yes.
We good? Okay, Leslie, did you see the difference on that? Nice job on, I know I just put you on the spot there, but you handled it greatly. So,
Thank you.
no, that was awesome. So just to kind of get that basic key concept, and if you ever want to read any books in regards to leadership and growing as a leader, John C. Maxwell's big. I know you borrowed some books from me, Leslie. There's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and then 5 Levels of Leadership. Both of them excellent books to help you continue to grow as a leader, because that's what you're going to see if you get down to the nuts and bolts of this business. That's everything. And as you continue to grow in confidence in your leadership ability, you're going to see that your business is also going to grow because you're working on yourself. And then now you're going to attract higher level leaders as well. So I can do a whole session just on leadership, but that's just kind of a taste of it, to kind of paint the picture there. So one of the things I want to talk about, because I know Yvette's, you've already said you've heard the same stories and the same descriptions, multiple times until it's kind of sunk in. When you're calling to set an appointment, Leslie, we've talked about this some too. So when you call to set an appointment, what is it that you're trying to do when you're just trying to set up a showing appointment? Because this is very key. When we're putting deals together, everything you do, and this is the same thing if you're trying to go after a listing, from your very first conversation, you're making an impression on the other person on the phone. So if you're calling an agent to see if it's available to set up a showing, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What are you trying to find out?
You want to gain information, just understand where the other side is coming from so that you know what approach to take with them.
Okay. And so what are some of the questions that you ask? So let's just do a quick role play. So I'm
The listing agent.
yeah, I'm the listing agent. I have a property that you want to show, let's do it real quick. So go ahead.
Sure. I'll use one of my current clients. So hi Brendan, my name's Leslie. I just wanted to show your property later today. In addition to knowing if it's available, I just had a couple questions for you. Do you have a quick minute?
I do.
Perfect. Brendan, is there anything I need to know with the seller? Where's the seller coming from? What's their story?
Seller is, just trying to sell their home, make as much money as they can for the sale of their home.
Okay, great. Do you have any offers on the table?
We don't. Not at this time. It was just listed yesterday, but we've had a lot of showing activity.
Perfect. Okay. So Brendan, another reason I was calling is I wanted to know a little bit more about the property. My buyers are looking for RV access and an open living space.
Mm-hmm.
Does this property have access to the backyard?
It's got a decent sized yard, but not an actual, or a yard as well as a decent sized driveway, but not an actual RV access.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that information.
Okay.
That's pretty much where I would end it, Brendan.
No, it's okay. So good job on asking in terms of offers, right? So this is pretty common. Most agents will ask, okay, do you have any offers on the table, right? And what we're trying to do, if they ever get to where they're pushing back on your questions, you want to validate it and say, look, I don't want to waste your client's time. Always focus on them first, but I don't want to waste your client's time. I don't want to waste my client's time. This is the reason. That's how you're earning the right to ask these questions. Okay. So let's just flip it real quick. Okay. You're the listing agent. Ready, Leslie?
I'm ready.
Okay. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Leslie, this is Brandon Raymond with Veteran Home Services. How are you doing today?
Hi, Brendan. Good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for asking. Hey, just calling about your property at 123 Primrose Lane, and see it just hit the market. My clients are very excited to see it. We'd like to show that at 5 o'clock later today. Does that work for your clients?
We've been scheduling back-to-back appointments. I've been trying to keep it to 30 minutes, but it's been going every 15 minutes, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
Let me check the schedule. I think 5:30 is available.
Okay, 5:30 is available. Well, I'm sure my clients can be flexible for that. So can we tentatively book that 5:30 time?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. And then I'll shoot you a text to confirm. Does that work for you?
Works just fine.
Wonderful. Well, and Leslie, do you have any offers at this time?
So we have 2 people that are thinking about sending one this evening, but I haven't received anything yet.
Okay, so nothing in hand yet, but 2 potentials coming in.
Correct.
Awesome. Well, I know my clients are going to love the house. We've been looking for some time. They're rock solid buyers. They're working with my go-to loan officer, who is awesome, and we've closed a lot of transactions together. So they've been fully vetted. He works for the DOD. He's a great buyer, and I know he's really excited about seeing your home, and I'm not surprised you're getting this kind of interest. Just real quick, what is it in terms of, for your sellers? Is it a standard sale or a home of choice? Are they looking for another replacement property?
Right. So my sellers are moving out of state, so they pretty much just want to get the home sold for as much as they can.
Okay. So trying to net the most from the sale of the home?
Correct.
Great, great. And you said they're moving out of state. Have they already found that property? Would they potentially be interested in rent back to have a little bit more time? Are they looking for a shorter close or a longer close?
They actually don't mind. They're going to be staying with family in the other state.
Okay, so they're staying with family, and then so they're either way they can do a longer escrow or shorter escrow.
Correct.
And they're going to stay with family. And are they purchasing another property or just going to stay with the family?
So initially they're gonna stay with their family, but then they're gonna purchase in that same area.
Awesome. So what I'm trying to do here, Liz, just to clarify, is one of the key things as I'm trying to figure out how am I going to tailor my offer to getting it accepted. One, I'm trying to already instill confidence in the listing agent that I know what I'm doing, that I have a strong buyer, that we know what we're looking for, and we already got all our ducks in a row, right? I'm trying to get her excited about us showing the property and potentially being interested. But the bigger thing of what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find out from her how important timing is, whether shorter escrow, longer escrow. Can I be creative here? So what if they're feeling the pressure of finding their next property? So they don't want to be rushed out of their house. So I've done it where I've actually put in a SPRP, seller purchase replacement property, initiated it from my buying side. And that's how I got my offer accepted as an FHA offer over all cash and over conventional offers, because they knew that I was going to put the least amount of pressure on that seller to have time to find their next property. And if I didn't ask those questions early on, I wouldn't have ever found out that she was selling her home to buy a condo in a very specific complex that there's nothing on the market there right now, and flexibility was going to be the most important thing. So there's 2 ways to attack it. SPRP, to give them time to look for their property. The other way is the rent back, right? So the rent back on the back end. So close in 30 days, but we're open to doing a rent back. So these are things that I'm going to ask questions to try to discover, as you talked about, Leslie. We want to get as much information as we can so that we can find out, okay, how do I tailor this offer to give in this seller exactly everything of what they need? Does that make sense, Liz?
Yeah, your whole thing sounds exactly how I make my calls.
Good. Well, that's what you want to be doing. Go ahead.
There's an additional, I do add in there anything that's staying with the property.
Yep.
Because not everybody mentions that. So for example, when I'm in contract with the wife was really insistent on the washer and dryer because it took her so long to convince her husband to buy it.
Right.
And so that was kind of our thing for them. We're like, go ahead, take it. We don't need it. When, standard, of course, right? Stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer. But, but yeah, I definitely ask. It's funny. One of those things that, I asked it a lot more. I think I ask it less now, but most of the time it's just, where are the sellers going? Why are they leaving? It's such a beautiful house. Or if there's anything that the seller really loved about their home.
Right.
I think getting the listing agent to talk about those things, because then you can get a feel for what the seller's priorities and their personality is.
Awesome.
Last year we got an offer accepted 25 under the highest offer because we wrote a letter, because I found out that they wrote a letter to get their house. So we happen to be the only offer that wrote a letter, and they accepted ours for that.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's definitely, making sure to get as much information out of the listing agent as possible.
Yep.
But sometimes like they're super stiff and they don't
Oh,
want to give you
sure.
anything. And I think to combat that, I do a lot of past digging. So if the listing agent's being a stiff and they don't want to tell you anything, then I just, chances are that house has been on the market before, and chances are the last listing agent will remember. And so if push comes to shove, like, and your guys' market is a little different than ours.
Yeah.
We've got like they put out everything, inspections and the disclosures. It's all out there first, and a lot of times they're like, no, you need to sign these disclosures before you put in your offer or with your offer.
Right.
So we get like full transparency here, and I think that a lot of agents they underestimate that, like, oh, this is all there is to know about the house. But it's like,
Right.
no, there's somebody who lived there who's going to be choosing. So you have to tailor the offer. And it works out nicely sometimes, because then just that little extra bit, if you know they're an investor, don't ask for a home warranty. Like,
Yep.
not going to give it to you.
Right.
So I tell my clients that everything is a negotiable point, including, who pays. I know that there's customs. Every county has a different one on who pays transfer tax, who pays this, who pays that. But our market right now, things are not staying. Like, single family homes are going under a week. So even if they have an offer due date, which is really common here, then we ignore it. And I tell my clients that too. And if you really love the house, don't look at the offer due date. Make a really decent offer, or really good offer that they're not going to say no to, or will at least counter, so we can get it into contract before the due date. We
That's
do that.
awesome. Yeah. No, that's smart and great tips. And thank you for sharing all that as well. It seems like you definitely have figured out, and that's the reason why you're having the success you are with these buyers and putting this together. It's getting the information, tailoring the offer, making it as clean as possible. One of the other questions I just want to make sure I mention is, what challenges could you potentially foresee in this transaction, right? Because you want to understand, okay, coming from the seller, the listing agent's perspective, what do they see as being a potential hurdle that could be a challenge to closing this transaction? The more I understand that up front, the more I can assure them that we're going to be able to overcome whatever that challenge is. It could be solar, it could be appraisal, it could, I mean, there's so many different things, right? Roof, go ahead, Yvette.
Well, I'm just thinking about what we're dealing with our buyers now. That was the first things they looked at, was the roof.
Yep. So many of the challenges that could come up, and being able to assure them that you can overcome those challenges. So there is a way to tailor the offer as well, to make sure that you identify that and show them that we are going to be the right team to work with. And that was one of the things that I would teach when I did Morning Ascents, which was our training in the mornings over at C21, was, I'd say half of the equation is, who am I working with? That other agent on the other side, right? How good are they, and how good is that loan officer? And how well do I feel that they know their stuff and they're able to lead their clients through the process? Say 50% of the equation is that. I don't care if I have an all cash buyer. I don't care how strong that buyer looks in terms of money down. I mean, it does obviously factor in, because it could help them overcome the appraisal. And another thing that I don't know if you're seeing as much up there, Liz, but with 20% down, are you seeing appraisal waivers where they run into you approval?
We do a lot of jumbo loans, so we don't see any appraisal waivers here.
Okay.
Like, unless you're on the underwriter side, then if it's not jumbo, just conventional, then I mean, you have to be pretty solid to get an appraisal waiver. But otherwise, we expect it, but we also expect, with so much over asking, and I'm talking about like the last 3 to 5 months, has been they just waive the appraisal contingency. That's what we're seeing, right? So everything, it's not even that everything is all cash, but if you're coming in with a loan, that was their biggest concern. Sellers were like, well, what if you lose your job right in the middle of this? And because it's with COVID. So anything with a loan, they not expected, but they really shortened contingency periods for loan and appraisal.
Well, you've had so many that even with loans are just removing all contingencies.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we're doing it.
All
That makes
three, I
sense.
think all three of the ones that I have in contract now, they all waived everything. They went in non-contingent. It was the only way to get in.
So when you do your due diligence, I mean, you're still able to inspect the property, correct
Yeah,
or no?
of course.
You still inspect it. What if they give you a late disclosure after you've removed everything? Is there still a wait that's created where you can still have an opening to get out of the contract if needed?
So yes and no. If it's new information that hasn't been provided, right, that's the benefit to having them do all the inspections and the disclosures and the HOA docs ahead
So
of
like
time.
we have one we remove contingencies on. We haven't got the HOA docs. Do you
Mm.
have?
Because I got the HOA docs from a different property and I gave it to them ahead of time. That's the only reason why they removed that, because otherwise they wanted 3 days to do the HOA docs. But I said, don't even bother. I went, and because homes are moving so fast these days and we have disclosures IO, that I went and I popped into a different home that it was in the same neighborhood with the same HOA, and I pulled their HOA docs and I sent it before we ever wrote the offer. So having all the information up front is crucial to that. A lot of them, I mean, sellers right now, I think are reasonable. If you have an HOA, or if they didn't do inspections, then they expect to see the contingency period or for the buyer investigation. But
Yeah.
if they provided everything, then they already know, they've been advised that they probably will get a non-contingent offer, as long as, either, the loan or appraisal is up in the air. But the expectation is that you don't have the buyer investigation because they've already done it for you. And it's just up to you to read through what they've already gotten.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, and it's when I'm talking about the appraisal waiver too, I'm not even referring to the contingency. I'm actually saying the appraisal being waived. So conventional offers, 20% down. Usually you need at least 20% down. There obviously has to be comps out there to support it, but what we'll do is we'll have our loan officer run the DU approval with a scenario and check it. They don't have to run their credit every time, but they can basically input the information to show 20% down on a particular listing, and I can see how high it'll go where the appraisal is waived. So I could even see that on the back end ahead of time. So if you are on the listing side, it is something, especially in terms of cross qualifying those, offers that have loans on it, doing that up front. I would ask them if you saw they had at least 20% down and it was a conventional loan. Jumbo is a good question because I don't know if it needs to be a conforming loan or not. Most of them, I would say, is the 20. Well, no, it's a jumbo loan for a niece. I'm pretty sure that's jumbo because it's over 700,000 for the loan. It's almost a $900,000 purchase. So anyways, and he got his appraisal waived. He has 20% down. There was no issue with it. So just something that a lot of agents don't know about. I want to make sure that I at least shared that with you in case you come across that situation, whether a buyer or on the seller side, because that's that's big for us out here, especially on this side where we aren't removing those contingencies ahead of time a majority of the time. But now we're seeing more as is and appraisal, being requested to be in waived. So it's another thing that can give you an in on the buying side. So no, originally I was actually going to go over the listing presentation. Yvette had shared that you wanted to, know a little bit more on the listing side. Is that something that's still interesting to you, or?
I know, I am so buyer heavy. It's so dumb.
No, it's not.
Just buyers.
That's where the action's at. I mean, and to be honest, this year I'd say 60+% of our business has been buying side, which in the past when I was managing, it was probably 90% of my business was on the listing side.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to shift based on the market. And right now with the low interest rates and the heavy buyer demand and the low inventory, which is extremely challenging, as you know, to get offers accepted. This is, if you're good, and you can separate yourself from the competition, which it sounds like you're doing well. So congrats on that. There's a lot of money to be made on the buying side, which a lot of agents try to stay away from it, but it doesn't mean that you don't want to work on the listing side. So have you, out of all the business, how many sellers have you helped so far?
I have had 4 listings. It's awful. It's awful.
It's okay. And how did you get that business? Has it been through Zillow as well, or has it been
Family.
family?
The only ones who trust me right now.
So you have family, and then good experiences. I'm hoping you sold all the properties and everything.
Yes. They're all investment though. That's the thing. So it's a different kind of turnaround for them than it was for, I take it back. 3 of them 3 of them are family, and then 1 of them was a referral.
Okay.
And the referral one, I mean, I went all out for that one because I was just like, I'm not messing this up. Which one?
That was a good one.
That was. It was. I just, and that was really, that one switched really fast because it was, we got her offer accepted contingent. And so I had to get her home on the market, but we got our offer accepted the day that shelter in place started. And so I had to like blow it out. And we did Compass Concierge, right? So then Compass prepays all of the vendors, and then it gets paid back from the proceeds of the sale back to the seller. So, or is that, did I do that right? No, the seller pays
Yeah.
yeah. And so that was kind of like double hurdles, but thankfully I had a bunch of vendors who were still working, who got the house ready in 7 days. And so we got it on the market, and then it was on the market for, I think, almost 2 weeks, and then we sold. So, so yeah, that was really crazy. And it was when folks weren't going out and looking at homes because everything was shut down. Real estate wasn't considered essential yet. So that was really difficult. But I mean, good experience. Otherwise, like that's the only primary home that I sold. Everybody else has been investment. So they're just like, we don't want to put any money into it, just sell it.
So what, yeah, I guess on the listing side, what would be helpful to help you be able to get more listing business?
I know.
Go ahead.
She's got challenges of feeling confident in the areas that she's talking to the sellers.
Okay.
Because because I 100%, right? I have the mentality. I'm a sale gal. Like, I will look for a bargain, which is why I'm so good with buyers, because I can bargain and negotiate down like a mother, but negotiating up is a real struggle for me because I'm not like, give me all your money. I'm more like, let me save all mine. So that listing mentality is really difficult, and also not understanding or knowing how to initiate that conversation. With buying, it's really easy, right? Like, oh, you want to buy a home? Great. There's nothing more I need to do about that. But with selling, I feel like there's so much more like educating, but I don't know enough about that, and I'm not comfortable. Like, hey, give me your $1 million+ home to sell. Doesn't flow naturally.
With your buyers, are you doing, do you do buyer broker agreements? Do you not do them? How do you handle that? You don't do it. All based on trust, showing property. So how do you capture your internet lead buyers? Let's just start with that. So you get a lead. What's kind of the process look like?
So usually they come in, right? Zillow leads come in with an address, that kind of thing. They don't pre-qualify, and I've noticed that asking if they have an agent hasn't worked out as well. So I ask them if it's the first home they're seeing. If this is the first time they're touring, and if it's not, then who did you go with last time? And that usually sparks a conversation about agents. And I think that that's a nice side step from who's your agent, because then they'll think of anyone else but you, as opposed to like, who did you go see this with? Then they're much more open to talking about their experience with that person, whether it was good, and then if there's any misconceptions, which 100% of the time there are, but then I have to talk to them about like, okay, like this is the process. And I'm so sorry that they didn't explain that to you, but I want you to be knowledgeable about the process because, this is obviously your investment. I said, I'm not living in your home. You are. So you should probably know what you're buying. So, and then it's just straight on. I don't pitch anything else. I just go, okay, like let's meet at wherever it is that you want to meet. COVID's really good for getting pre-approval letters. I'll tell you what, because I'll be like, we can't see the home until you get me a pre-approval letter.
Right.
And sometimes, like, especially for the ones that I know are going to be, I can already feel it. I'm like, you're going to be a troublemaker. And then I'm like, okay, where's your pre-approval letter? But if they seem nice enough and like, they've got kind of their head on their shoulders, then I'll go and meet them, do my rapport there, because I feel like so much like phone conversations are really watered down. Even the Zoom calls, right? Like they're not the same as being in person. So I try my best to make the in-person connection. So build a rapport, get the in-person connection, and then move on from there. And I tell them, literally, this is exactly what I say. I'm like, look, I know I know that what I do, I know what I'm doing. And if ever, if ever you feel like I'm not doing my job or the service that you're expecting, then I want you to let me know. I said, I'm never going to hold you hostage. So, but I would appreciate you letting me know if there's something that I'm lacking, because then at least I can correct it. And if I can't, by all means, there is a realtor for everyone. There is. And if I'm not it, that's okay too. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to work with me.
Right. Awesome. No, nice job with explaining it. There's so many different things I can touch on from what you just shared right there. There were so there's a site called Keeping It Real, REAL.com. And while we were trying to figure out how to be better at these internet leads, my buddy brought me on to that, and they're actually based out of Hawaii. Real Geeks is the website, internet lead conversion. They interview the top teams, top people in the country that do internet leads and their process to doing it. So a couple of things I've learned from there. Number one, and because I had to teach about internet leads, I wasn't even really qualified to teach about it yet. So I had to research it, which it helped, because as soon as I only teach what I know works, right? But I wasn't 100% confident in that area with the internet leads, and I couldn't understand. It's like, why are we having so much trouble setting up these showings, doing it? And one of the biggest things I can tell you, there's a few main points. Number one, the goal to winning at internet leads is meeting face to face. So whatever you have to do to keep it as simple as possible to meet them face to face, that's key, which you've already identified, right? Show them the property. If there were a hierarchy, number one, they meet you in the office would be the top priority. They come to your office. You can create enough value that they want to meet you in person in the office first. And if you can set that up, that's best case. Next step would be meet them at the property. That'd be number two, right? Actually, number two was coffee. Meet them for coffee somewhere at a neutral place. I know this is just going nuts. Meet them for coffee. And then number three would be at the property. So that would be the third. Either way, it's face-to-face. And our stats show 2 out of 3 first-time buyers or buyers in general who meet face-to-face stick with the agent that they meet first, right? So as long as you don't really blow it and you kind of know what you're doing and you go there, you meet them, you show them the property, that's how you win in the game of internet lead conversion. The other thing to build on that is the 2 questions that we're all taught to ask is, how much are you qualified for? And are you working with another agent? The working with another agent question is a killer, because again, just like if you go into a store and you ask, hey, is there anything that you're looking for? Can I help you find something? You know, what are you looking for? How can I help you? What's your initial response when you walk into a store?
Nothing. I'm just looking.
Nothing. I'm just fine, right? It's the same thing with, are you working with an agent? It's too vague. Number one, what does working with another agent mean, right? What is it that mean? Does that mean that you're under contract with them? Does that mean that they've sent you emails? Does that mean they've shown you property? It's way too vague, and it's an easy out. So you don't ask that question. You don't ask, are you working with another agent? It's good that you have your own. Have you seen, is this your first time touring properties? Just to get an understanding with where they're at. I've never used that. I think that's great. But don't ask, are you working with another agent? Because it will come up in conversation at some point if you do the right thing and have a good conversation. And number one most important thing is, your goal is to truly try to help whoever is on the other line in any way possible. So if you have good conversations, you're going to do really well at this business in terms of prospecting. So take the pressure off of, okay, I got to set the appointment, I got to do this, I got to set the showing, I got to, enforce to that, because they're going to feel that. And just get to, okay, let me get a good understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish, okay? So again, the 2 key things, financing even, which we need to talk about pre-approval letters. So all this information was pre-COVID. And the hurdle that a majority of agents will say is, I will not step foot in my car until I know somebody's got a pre-approval letter, right? Exactly. As you know, starting out, if they're looking at 800, a million plus for a property, guess what? You're not wasting your time. Right? Go out there, meet them, talk to them, build some rapport, build some trust, because somebody like that isn't just going to throw their finances at you. And just because you're talking to them because they clicked on a Zillow ad doesn't give you the right to get to know all the most personal information about them. And typically you're going to shut off that conversation. So the key to all of this in terms of becoming an expert communicator, leader, however you want to define it, is always being able to make people feel comfortable. always being able to ask questions in a way that doesn't come off as an interrogation or a put down or any of that, but you earn the right in asking those questions by showing them that you care and that you have some value to offer them. So it's three things. You're going to connect first, you have to create value, and then you got to close for the appointment. Those are the 3 C's of what you're doing on every conversation. And close for the appointment, or it could be closed to get them to get pre-approved, right? You can still get to that conversation, but don't keep that towards the top of your conversation, because you're going to throw those walls up right out the gate and you're never going to get to where you need to be in that conversation. Does that make sense? So I don't know if any of that is anything different or helps in any way, but it's really, you know, if anything, hopefully crystallizes that. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that, because that's what you're doing and you already know what's working and what doesn't work, or areas that can get better, is that's the exact same thing on the listing presentation. So you'll see that as much as you think that the listing presentation is a whole secret recipe, the exact same process. And the same fundamental belief that I said is, number one, you got to believe that you're the best person for the job, not the second best, or there's better listing agents or any of that. You got to believe that.
Sorry, I have. It's not a weed. It's 4 weeds.
So this here.
My broker.
So you
Sorry.
You can definitely get some.
Thank you. I've been bugging about this. He's talking about my plants. But this big ass thing here, it was here when I first moved into this office, and it hasn't moved since. And no matter how many times I tell him, like, can you move this? And so he finally got somebody over here. He's like, that's the thing. Get it out. Sorry.
No, it's all good. So just real quick, because I know we've already been over our hour. Are you guys okay?
I'm okay.
You good? Leslie, you doing okay over there?
Yep, I'm okay.
Is this good still?
Very helpful.
Okay, good. So just real quick, I'm gonna go over just the basic overview on the listing presentation of what you're gonna want to do, that you're gonna see the connections in terms of what you're already doing. I don't know if you're able to see this very well or not, but we'll try our best here.
I should write it. You have ugly handwriting.
Well, thank you. All right, so
Doctor handwriting.
So phase 1, phase 2. Okay. Can you see that? Nope, not at all, huh? Damn.
You're
Barely?
the
Okay.
lines are off, but I can read everything else. As long as
All right, so there's 2 main parts, right, in your listing presentation. At a certain point, you're going to go from phase 1 to phase 2, and that's at the end of phase 1. If you've done it right, they're ready to allow you to lead them in terms of talking about the price, talking about paperwork, and leading you through the process. But at the beginning, they first have to select you, and you have to understand that they have to choose you. So the first part really is choose me. And it's not just talking about me, but it's getting them to, through discovery, getting to understand what their needs, what their wants, what their expectations are, which you already talked about on the buying side. That's what I'm saying. This stuff ties in together very nicely. You're going to need to solidify that relationship and then eventually get to a question that I call a temperature gauge question. That is just like, okay, so it could be as soft as, so how do you feel about what I shared with you so far? It could be as simple as that. And they could say, oh, I think it's great. I love it, right? And they're committing more and more and more towards you and you representing them. Or you can ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being 100% confident that I can sell your home, right? Where are you at right now? And they can say a 9, an 8, a 7, whatever, right? And whatever their response is, unless it's a 10, if it's a 10, you need to go straight to the paperwork and sign the listing agreement. But if it's at like a 7 or an 8 or a 9, you'll get quite a bit. And they'll just say, well, just because I don't know you from the next person, or I'm going to interview 2 other people, or whatever. When you do this the right way, you will discover their motivation, how serious they are about choosing you, what their objections are, if they're going to interview other people, whatever it is. And you want to know it. You want to discover what it is so you can overcome it and then lead them to getting the listing agreement. Okay. So that temperature gauge question becomes important. I always put that at the bottom here because that's a key point that shifts you from phase 1 to phase 2. So I said choose me is phase one. Phase two is going to be now about the price. We put market on there too, and I kind of have the market in phase one, but it's market, price, and paperwork. And I say paperwork instead of contract because if you listen to any Tom Hopkins, if you want to hear some good sales training, Tom Hopkins is awesome. Old school guy. He came out about the same time as Mike Ferry. Very, I think, more like our personality in terms of closing. He's much more chill, easygoing. Mike Ferry is much more driver, closing, direct, in your face, doesn't care about feelings. Tom Hopkins is the opposite. He's much more emotional based and very easy to listen to, and you're going to learn a lot of techniques that will help you not only with your, but just in general in terms of closing. Okay. So in starting out here, so I said price. Now price is always, if you think of a seller, the two things that they always want to know is one, how much can you sell my home for, right? What price, how much is my home worth? And two, what are you going to charge commission? Okay. Those are the two biggest things. They can't ask how long is it going to take to sell my home. And that's where you want to become an expert in terms of the market stats. Okay. Do you feel pretty good with market stats? Do you have anything? I know everything's sounding like in a week and that, but do you have average days on market, absorption rate, all those little details sound pretty good?
Yes.
Awesome. So, okay. So in the choose me, we're going to start with TAP. TAP is think, acknowledge, and promise. That's your intro. Okay. And then to remember very easily after TAP, it's map. It's your blueprint. Okay. So your introduction is we try to connect with somebody. So if you're walking into a house, and there's little tips and things out there, but one of the very first things I always ask is, would you like me to take my shoes off? And you're trying to acknowledge respect in their house because you never know what their background is or how they look at that, right? You're trying to connect. So you want to thank them for their time. You want to acknowledge their property. If they have a beautiful home, you have a beautiful home, right? Or if they don't have a beautiful home, I thank you for your time, the time that you took out of your day to meet with me, right? And then a P is promise. Promise is what you're going to do. So you can promise as you're trying to cast this vision for your sellers and lead them through the process is at the end of this conversation, you're going to have a very good idea of what I do to sell homes and how I can help you sell your home for the most amount of money. Whatever it is you want to promise, right? Now, if you do it right, and that's what I was talking about in terms of your process, that's why I wanted to know, okay, what do you do when you get that call? So say you get somebody who says, hey, Liz, I want you to come check my house out on Thursday at 4 o'clock, right? I want you to come just check it out. Just give me your idea. You know, I don't want to list, I don't want to sell, you know, I just want you to come over and check it out. So you're going to set that appointment for Thursday at 4 o'clock, right? The day before that, you should do what's called a pre-qualification phone call. And you should call them up and you should do kind of what Leslie did in our very first kind of role play, but you give it credibility, or you earn the right to ask these questions. Even though I have it confirmed for Thursday at 4 o'clock, on Wednesday, I'm going to call them up and say, hey, just want to make sure that you're still good for Thursday at 4 o'clock. If it's a husband and wife or a married couple, you know, whatever. If it's, you know, you want to make sure both signers are going to be there. If possible, you want to make sure the decision maker is going to be there at the property. So when you call, you're going to do a pre-qual, and that pre-qualification is the discovery. That's just like what you're doing in terms of when you say the question, hey, I need to know if you like the way that I work. That's your expectations part, right? That's discovery. The more info you get before you meet with them face-to-face, even though you're just previewing the home, you're not going in for a listing presentation, the more that you're going to be able to tailor your presentation to what they specifically want. You want to know the answers to the test before you take the test, okay? So this is all the discovery process. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So as we go through MAP, another word for MAP. So MAP is just like, just think of blueprint. It's not an acronym like TAP, right? But this is your map. You got to now show them, okay, this is where I'm going to lead you through the process. And there's 4 key things that you're going to do as you go through the map. And so the first, you're going to want to know what their needs, what their wants, and what their expectations are. And it's just not their expectations. It's also your expectations of what they're going to do as sellers to help cooperate to make sure that you can put their property in the best light possible, how they're going to be available for showings, whatever it is that you need to set proper expectations. You're doing it both ways here. We both have to meet each other's expectations to have a great experience through this process. And we're going to talk about this all up front. There are many agents that do not understand this process and never ask the questions, what is it that you're looking for in a real estate agent? They just go in and sign a listing agreement. They don't know what it is that their clients want. You have to discover it. You got to figure this out front. So whether you're doing it on the pre-qual or whether you're doing it in live in person, ideally you do as much of this upfront on that pre-qual, and there's a list of questions that you should have. And if you ever need a script, you can definitely pull up the Mike Ferry scripts. Go to MikeFerry.com. He has a pre-qual script. He's got a few of them. And then you pull the questions that you like. And with your listing presentation, you should have another 21 questions on the listing presentation that you master. And you definitely got to master the first 3 that are the key, most critical questions. And one of them is going to be, so what are your expectations in the agent that you'd look to hire, right? What ultimately do you want to accomplish in the sale of your home? Okay, that's another big question. And you want to know what is, most people think, oh, I just want to make as much money as possible. I want to spend as little as possible. And I want to make as much. So I don't want to, pay that much in commission. So are you willing to save money for me? That's one of the biggest objections to come up with, right? So what you have to do, the reason why you don't want to talk about price and commissions up front is because if they focus on price and commission, they're in that area. And just so you know, what you talked about being a saver, that's about 10% of the population, that all they want are the best deals possible, right? That's all they want. There's another 10% of the population that basically will only spend the most money for things because they know that they get the best value in what they spend. That's a different 10% of the population. Then you got 80% of the population that's pretty much indifferent about that. Yeah, they want to save money. Yeah, they're willing to spend a little bit of money, but that's a majority of who's out there. If you get somebody who only just wants to save, you have to speak their language, right? And you got to be able to connect with them. And you got to discover that. And when you get to commission, you will have some challenges, but if you do the right things up front, and this is how you handle that commission question, the objection, is you shift their focus from what they're spending, the cost, to how they're going to benefit by how much money they're going to walk away with. Okay? Not the cost of what you're spending on the commission, because I've heard people handle it many different ways. One thing that they say, and this is called objection handling, is they say, well, you're actually not paying the commission as the seller, even though we know they're paying the commission as the seller. You don't pay anything unless I bring a qualified buyer who can close the transaction. That buyer is paying that commission. Does that make sense? Because if I don't bring that buyer that can close the transaction, nothing gets paid. You don't pay me anything. That buyer's paying for it in the sales price. So it's all tied in. What's important is how much you walk away with. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have to find a way to be able to tell that commission story. And it's challenging. You got to be able to practice that.
I've never seen you so flustered in my life.
Oh my God. I'm so,
You look like me talking about calling people.
it's so unnatural to.
Well, but you'll get better at it, and you'll practice it, and you'll master it, and you'll get to where you have net sheets. I've seen agents who take listings at 6%, and they're charging 3.5 on their side, and they don't even show a net sheet until they're in the transaction. They wonder why every married couple situation blows up once they're in the transaction, realizing how much money they're paying that listing agent. You don't handle it that way, right?
Wow. I was such a say, I was like, that's miserable. What? Who's getting getting off with that? What's your secret?
You're setting yourself up for disaster. You have to be able to have those net sheets up front.
Yeah.
You have to be able to come in with that listing presentation confident, and you have to know, and again, they're going to read you. Do you believe in yourself? Number one, do you believe that you are the best listing agent for the job? Or will they lose money by hiring you? Will they lose money by hiring Leslie? Leslie, are they going to lose money if they hire you to list their home?
Nope.
No, not at all, right, Yvette? Are they going to lose money if they list with you?
No, I have you behind me.
Okay,
It's
good.
fine.
Right? But you got to have the confidence, number one, that you are the best person for the job, and two, that you can get it done. Okay. And you know that, and really, when I am competing against other agents, I don't need to talk about them to make myself better. But what I do is I highlight what I bring to the table that I know they don't bring to the table. So in my pre-qual, if they tell me, yeah, I'm going to interview 2 other people, I'm going to ask them, oh, would you mind sharing how you got those other referrals, or how did you find those other agents that you're going to interview? Say, oh, one's my wife's friend, one's a brother, or one's off Zillow Premier, whatever, right? And they'll tell me what it is. Then if they'll tell me more, I'll get their names, their info, and I'll be able to figure out what company they're with. This is all, I don't need to convince them on the phone that I'm the one for the job, right? I'm trying to plant seeds. I'm trying to build confidence. All I care about is setting that appointment. I'm not trying to convince them that they need to ditch everybody else. But once I have that info, once I got the answers to the test, now I know how I'm going to bring it when I come to that listing presentation, because I know their weaknesses, I know their strengths, and I know how I'm going to tailor my presentation to specifically what these sellers want. Because it's not the same presentation to it's always a different presentation. And some of these will be an actual hour presentation, which some people will say is too long. Others are going to be a quick 15-minute. If you hit the right buttons quick and they can tell they like you, you don't have to put them through this whole thing, right? So as we talk about needs, wants, expectations, I'm trying to remember where I'm at here. You're going to talk about what you do, so you can put your plan of action. So what you do to sell homes, and you want to have that very clear. Then you're going to talk about the market, where it's been, where it's at, and where it's heading, and that's a key one. So past, present, and future. And then you're going to talk about, if you feel comfortable with what we discussed today and confident that I can sell your home, we're going to take care of some paperwork. So that sounds good, right? So basic. We did our tap. So Yvette, thank you for your time today. You have a beautiful home, and my promise to you is, you mentioned the other day that you need to be in San Diego by January 1st, that after we talk today, you're going to know, and my promise is that I'm going to get you to San Diego by January 1st, and we're going to net you the most for the sale of your home. Does that sound good?
Sounds dope.
Awesome. Well, dope. So, so now today, we're going to go over a few things here. Okay. First, we want to talk about what are your needs, what are your wants, and what are your expectations in the sale of your home. Okay. After that, we're going to talk about what I do to successfully sell homes. And I have all my market stats here in terms of all the homes that we've sold. We've sold every property we've listed, as well as the average days on market, and at over 100% of what our list price is. Okay, so I'm going to show you those steps. Third, we're going to go over the market, where it's been, where it's at, and where it's heading, so that you understand, and together we're going to come up with a price that will effectively make sure that you walk away with the most money. Okay, and then finally, if you feel confident that I can sell your home, we're going to talk about taking care of some paperwork. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so some will just say sounds good, and we'll just keep going through it. Others will be like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean take care of some paperwork? I don't know you yet, and they'll start giving their objections. That's fine. You're doing little soft closes as you go through your presentation, and it does become a canned script, a canned idea. And I don't do this, just to be 100% honest, I don't hit it by going through the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I know the outline in my head of what points I need to hit on as I go through the presentation. And one of the key ones is through this needs, wants, and expectations. This is discovery. So right now I'm giving the math, but right after that, we're going straight into discovery. And I'm going to start listing off questions and just hitting them. Number one, ultimately, what are you trying to accomplish with the sale of the home? Or I'm going to try to find out. So just share with me, you reached out to me, you were referred me from a past client. So what happened in your life, to lead to you thinking about selling your home right now? Can you share with me, what event has happened, right? And then from there, or I can just say, just tell me a little bit about yourself. Before we get started with all this, tell me a little bit about yourself and, why we're thinking about selling our home right now. And they're just going to start opening up. And before I even learned any of this structure, right, of this formal outline of what needs to happen in our presentation, when I went through mediation training and I flipped my listing presentation, where I had my old book that I would go page by page of, okay, this is what the market's doing, these are the comps, and it would take an hour to get through that. I put the book aside. I had it all prepared, but I put it aside, and I just asked the gal across the way, I just said, hey, So tell me a little bit about yourself and why we're here today, you know, and why you reached out to me to preview your home. And I sat back and I had my journal, which I always take my journal with me. And I'm literally just sitting there and just ready to take notes. And she starts sharing with me. She's like, well, my daughter has stage 4 cancer. She and she just starts sharing exactly what's going on in her life. I connect with her. My mom had stage 4 cancer. She's fine now, but you know, we connect off of her sharing that story. And then all she said within it was probably 10 minutes, but definitely within 15 minutes. Okay, I just need to know what I need to sell my house for. I know I want to list my home with you. All she had to do was open up. But most agents aren't even going to come in and ask that question and try to get a feel for who they're working with. They come in, okay, I know price is going to be a big deal. I got to make sure I got the magic number on price. I know they're going to hit me on commission, right? We're all wound up and built up on these misconceptions that may not be important to that other person. We just assume it because we think that that's what's important to us, right? We think that commission's important to us, money's important to us, so it's going to be important to everybody else, and that's not the case. That's only a small percentage of the population, right? And if you get into personality styles, have you heard anything about the personality styles? The driver, the amiable, the analytical, the expressive? Okay, we'll touch on that. There's a book called Versatile Selling. It's a real small book. It's like $12 on Amazon. It's Wilson Learning Group, but that's key. And they basically show the population's roughly about 25% in each of those categories.
I know what she is.
What is she?
She's an analytical driver. That's for damn sure.
I was just say, I was like, I'm either the driver with a little analytical.
Right.
Else.
Well, and it's what you'll also find is under different situations, you'll have more of a different personality. So your go-to may be, for me, it was more amiable, at least is what I would hear all the time. But I've also heard analytical as well. I've heard just about, I think I got split personalities. I've heard just about everything.
She's
But
not
my wife-
emotional though. So
My
like
wife
if it,
swears driver.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into the personality styles because that's another one. But yeah, the emotional side, it's either more fact-based or more feeling-based, more telling versus asking. And I've already heard a lot of asking, so I put you more on the asking side of the switch. Shit, I might as well draw it out now.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So it's so here's fact, feeling, and then you got tell and ask. Okay, and then over here is your analytical.
Oh, I thought you were gonna write my name.
Here you go, Liz.
Here's Liz, analytical, and then you have amiable. It's more feeling based, and they'll also say that more in their questions as well.
And then you
feeling
can write
and ask
Yvette
questions.
over there.
Yeah, you can write Yvette. We got probably Leslie, and we got myself. Right?
Guys.
We have, and more on the amiable side, these are your nurses, your teachers. They actually say that these are the best real estate agents. I'm not just saying that just because we're all over here, but no, it's people who are very empathetic, right? Very caring. You can sense that and feel that on this side here. Okay.
This is your mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So driver is up top. So driver, and what you'll find is the hardest people for you to connect with is that opposite quadrant. Okay. So amiables have the hardest time with drivers. Analyticals are actually better with driver because you're more fact-based than feeling-based. Okay. Then over here is your expressive. Expressive or fast talkers. So when you hear somebody who talks a lot, and we could put Yvette
I was
over
going
here
to say,
too.
move me.
She could be on the expressive side as well. So the fast talkers or people who talk a lot are either expressive, but you got to be careful because they're also analyticals. And analytical, once they talk about what they like, that you can't shut them up. They'll just keep talking, and the
That
process
is
just
you.
keeps going. So that's more than that. If they're shorter with words, usually it's driver. They don't say a whole lot, and they just get straight to the point. They don't care about how the baby's made. They just want to see the baby, right? That's the driver personality. So drivers are very short, direct to the point. And the key to all of this is just like in communicating with anything is when you speak the same language, when you can identify their personality style, you treat them how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated. And that's where we have to get all our own biases, our own, whatever, our walls, our limitations, whatever you want to call it. We got to get that out of our head so that we can identify what personality style are they and then treat them how they want to be treated. Because A driver is going to want you to show them different things than what an analytical or an amiable or an expressive is going to want to do. And these are typically the opposite. So if you are analytical, your hardest person to work with is an expressive, because they like to talk as well. And they just want to hear themselves talk most of the time. They usually wear bright colors. It's even in the way people dress. It's crazy. It's like you can see them. There's so much study on all of them.
You married an expressive.
Did you?
No. I married the one under the other list.
Is he amiable?
He's a teacher.
Oh, he's amiable then. He's probably more than likely. Oh, I put teacher. Yep. Is he? Yeah. Well, he could.
But out.
So, but you'll connect more with people so on this side, you're going to connect on the facts. On this side, you're going to connect analytical and amiable on questions, right? Asking versus telling. Telling is somebody who's going to tell you, and just remember the saying, this is one of Mike Ferry's saying, telling is repelling, okay? So anytime you're telling anybody anything, right? This is how real estate works. Let me tell you this, they don't own it. It puts them off. They're only listening to part of it. But asking questions, this whole listing presentation, it's all question-based. It's a question-based listing presentation. And if you do it well, then they discover what it is that they need to do, and you're leading them with those questions to get them to think the way you want them to think. That's the art of this presentation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling overwhelmed?
If it makes it any easier, it's all questions. It's all questions, asking questions, becoming an expert listener. When I talk about being a great leader, becoming a really good listener, active listener, interviewer, whatever you want to call it. And the more you can get that information, just like you do on the buying side, it's the same thing on the listing side. So that's to take some pressure off. You're already doing a great job at what you're doing on the buying side. Doesn't mean we can't grow and be better, right? But you're doing a lot of things that are working that is going to transition to this side very easily. This isn't to overwhelm you. This gives you kind of that structure. So as we go through that, then we do the discovery, get as much info as we can. Then we start tailoring it. And some of it on the discovery, when we talk about expectations, is communication is very important, right? So communication, tell me about communication. What do you prefer? Do you prefer text? Do you prefer email? How frequently, right? When we set expectations with our sellers, they're going to hound you every day in most situations. So you have to set the expectation that, hey, look, every Monday, especially if you're doing open houses and that kind of thing, but showings are usually going to happen over the weekends. Every Monday between 3 and 4 o'clock, I'm going to call you up and I'm going to give you an update of what happened in this previous week, what showings we had, any offers we got, any feedback we got, what our competition has done. So the houses we're competing against, what went into escrow and why they went into escrow over us, and how are we positioned against our competition, right? That's the weekly conversation. But I set that expectation up front so that they're not calling me every day. Now, some clients still will. It's not as bad because they know come Monday at 3 o'clock, they're going to get that update from me. This is how you start controlling your time more. This is why eventually you want to get to the listing side versus the buying side, is because you'll spend 3 hours prepping for a listing and getting paid almost no matter what on a listing versus 30 hours with a buyer in hopes that you may write an offer, right? After 30 hours of showing property and doing everything else
This
that
will
you want.
fire him.
I do. After, pre-COVID, right? If they could find a home in 3 different showings, right? Like multiple houses per showing. But if you couldn't find the house that you wanted in 3 showings, then I sat them down and I was like, you need to rethink what you're doing. Like you either have to change your expectations or change your price point. I don't care which one it is, but like, if you want to get a house, this is what I'm here for. So that's my expectation for them. I'm like, nah. I'm not here to just show you homes. I'm here to help you buy one.
Well,
So
if you'd like to continue doing what we're doing right now, if this is interesting to you at all and you're seeing some value in it, definitely would appreciate you just sharing all of those things that you see work for you, because it's key. That real talk that you're having with buyers, that's one of the most difficult things to do, and it's to bring them to reality and get them to allow you to lead them to being successful and winning in the game of real estate, right? So the quicker you are to that, the better. And when I say that 30 hours, I mean, it could still be 30 hours per buyer. On average, this is what they say, and I don't know if it's true for you, and you may handle more buyers than this, but active, motivated buyers that are searching and watching the market every single day and trying to jump, you typically can only handle 5 to 7 at a time in a month. 5 to 7 buyers at a time in a month. Does that sound about right?
Okay. Yeah.
Keep them
Do you feel it's
organized.
more?
Yeah. I think, yeah, 5 or 7 active. Yeah, you
Right.
probably.
That I'm saying that
Probably
it's,
anything
that's
more than that, you're like, it's tough to.
no, it's chaos. It's just there's just too much. You're on call. They want to see this. They want to see, they want to feel that you're giving them this. It's just, and you're always at the mercy. You're giving up your weekends. You're giving up everything to be responsive because that's what they need to even have a chance in this kind of market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 5 to 7. On the listing side, you can do 15, 20 plus and be fine. 15, 20 plus listings in a month and have them all set up in like clockwork, because now you are the employer and the employees, all the buyer's agents, are out there showing your properties. You just took the contract. You took the listing. So if that first one falls out, now you got them on the next one. You're still going to get paid. The first one fell out, but it's going to sell eventually and you are going to get paid. So that's eventually where you want to get to. It doesn't mean stop what you're doing, because what you're doing, buyers will finance you time to learn how to become a strong listing agent. But once you are a strong listing agent, now you have the inventory. Now you have what buyers want. Now you have the signs out. Now you generate those leads that you're looking for instead of paying for it through Zillow. But the downside is because of this whole COVID, because of all the changes with the internet, that's still a big piece of the market is the internet, right? 91%, 92% of buyers all start online. So you got to have still some type of piece there, even if you become a strong listing agent. But now you may not be wasting your time with as many buyers, and you start building a team and having other people working those and teaching them how to do that. So that's eventually, that's how you take it to where you're going from 10 to 12 a year to getting to 20 plus. You know what I mean, in terms of that business.
Yeah, no, and that is the goal. It's a matter of I have like indescribable anxiety. Like the second it hits the market, I'm like, somebody just give me an offer so I can be done. But whereas with buyers, it's really easy to just be like, here's the offer. Okay, it didn't accept it. Not that ever happens, but like if it doesn't get accepted, like whatever, no big deal. On to the next. And then I don't have to worry about it. And it's not my fault. It's the seller's fault. Like, look at those jerks. You're so with buyers, it's really easy. There's no stress involved, but like every single listing, and especially like family, right, or referral, like I was always like, oh my God, please. And I had another listing that I had for 6 months, dude. It was misery, and I ended up getting. Yeah, and I got not blacklisted, but they boycotted me. They're a small community, and they didn't want an outside agent because the second it went to a local agent after ours got expired, it sold in like 3 days. So that's why I was like, you mother. So, so I get really high anxiety waiting. I think it's the waiting that's really miserable for me, and which is why I'm like, yeah, I'm a buyer's agent. I'm really good at it. I'm really great. Listings give me such anxiety. I don't want to wait, and I don't want to fail, and it's really easy to feel that way when I have a listing. So I think that's part of it. Like my confidence is so stunted from this idea that like, ah, crap, like, and even if I manage the expectations of my client, right? Like I do that, right? I tell them I'm going to reach out to you every week and I'm going to let you know, unless there's something that's immediate, then I'll let you know then. But even then, like the build up to that, because if I don't have anything to report to them, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, that was a good point that you just brought up on that. If you don't have anything to report on, why do you think that house isn't selling?
Yeah.
Price, right? So you got to confront them on price, because in this kind of market, if anything's not moving, it's overpriced. Everything will sell. Everything will move if it's priced right. So there's a way, and that's part of it. When we talk about pricing in the market, again, I'm giving you a quick overview. There's a specific pricing strategy that works to sell the homes, and that's what you're communicating about. So when you do your weekly talks, it's always about the price, and they hate hearing it, but that's the reality of it. Hey, we tried your price. I told you we'd come up with a price together. I'm not going to give you the number that you have to sell your home at. I always give a range. I always talk about a sweet spot. The closer we get to that sweet spot, now you're going to generate the activity, the showings, as well as the offers that are going to come in. But if we're away from that sweet spot, we're not going to generate that type of activity. Okay. So the listing side, especially being analytical, you're going to love it, because you're going to love the numbers that you can control. You're going to love that you're going to be able to get the outcome that you want if you can be able to confront and be the leader that they need you to be to get them to where they want to be. And those are some of the tough questions, or the lines, if you want to call them that. Is I tell them, I said, look, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear to get the listing. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear to sell your home. So other people may tell you what they want to hear just because they want your listing. They want their sign out there. They want to try to generate as much business. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to hear to sell your home. And people appreciate that. And that also gives you the right, that setting expectations, that you're always going to be direct, that you're always going to confront them if they need to hear something, whether they like it or not. And believe me, they're going to throw it right back at you as well. So you got to be able to handle those and be able to back it up with the numbers and the facts. So it's, I just appreciate your honesty and sharing everything that you have. It's all very natural. It is, I mean, it's easy to get anxious in this process, especially in a market like what you've kind of been accustomed to in terms of things moving very fast and, you know, quick. You've understood it on the buying side, and that's going to help make you a better listing agent, because you get what the buyer's agents are thinking and what they're doing to try to get their offers accepted. That makes you a stronger listing agent than somebody who just does listings 100%, doesn't work with buyers, because they're not in the trenches on that side. So they don't get it. They don't understand all the different little things, you know, that can come up on that side. So, but no, I think this was good. Just at least kind of give you an overview, and then it's fine tuning everything. But I mean, did you find it helpful?
Yeah, totally. I think that, yeah, and I think I missed this part of having people in the office, because before COVID, right? Like, you'd run into somebody in the office, and I'm really I like to talk to other people in my office, just because it's experience that I don't have. But obviously I missed that for the past like nine months almost. So so yeah, I think that this is super helpful, and nobody here wants to talk about listings. We all talk about buy side because that's what we're all doing, right? Like the people who talk to each other. But if you go to a listing agent, you start asking them questions, they're like, I'm busy.
Well, and they're protective of it, and they don't want to, you know, that's how they ensure their success, and they don't want to necessarily equip you with that information. So it's
So many homes share, like you don't make enough money, butt out, just, you know, alms for the poor, right?
but that's the difference from people who are very I mean, there are some successful people like that, you know, who are very limited with what they share, and they just want to take and not give. But then you have others who, again, are the stronger leaders, who just come from a place of giving and abundance. And that's how you want to do your business. You always want to give, and you always want to focus outward on others. And the more that you do that, you're going to keep attracting the right types of business, the right types of client, the right types of people, and get everything that it is that you want to accomplish. So you're taken care of very well for being that way. But yeah, it is something that people are very selective in terms of what they share. And you normally have to pay $1,000 a month. So if you'd like to start sending a check over, you're more than welcome to. And we'll
breaking
keep
up. I can't hear
You're
you.
breaking up.
but people pay big money to get these basic ideas that have been around for 40 plus years. And it's the same thing. It's the same conversation, same objections, same ideas. Markets change, and you got to stay on top of the market and know it inside and out, because it's changing almost by the week, right? So the more that you're on that, that's going to make this even stronger in terms of the presentation. That's when we'll get into the market. But no, we got to wrap it up. Leslie, any questions or anything from what we went over? I know you've heard, if not all of it, you know, a majority of it. Was it helpful?
All of it.
Back into it?
It was super helpful. I was waiting for you to put me on the spot for the 4 pillars, but it's okay.
Well, what are the 4 pillars while we're on it?
I'm so happy to tell you.
Okay, you got it right in front of you, right? What are the 4
I
pillars?
wrote them down because I remembered them. So
the 4 pillars, just real quick, Liz. So when we ask a seller, what is it that you believe an agent does? And this is the reason, this is the educating part. Just like you have to educate buyers, this is the educating part you have to do with sellers. Because what would you say, Liz, first? What do you believe an agent does to sell a home? Or what do you think that most sellers think an agent does to sell a home?
Market it.
Market it. Okay. What else?
I don't have an answer.
Well, I'm just saying, what do sellers think? They think that you put a sign out in the front yard, you put it on the MLS, then you pray that it sells,
Mm.
right? The 3 Ps, right? So, and the last part's supposed to be funny, right? About you just pray that it sells. You basically don't do anything. It's a very passive approach. Okay.
Ah,
So what Leslie's about to touch on, the 4 pillars, everything you do on the listing side ties into these 4 pillars. So go ahead, Leslie, share what the 4 pillars are.
So your job as an agent is to consult and advise, to market and expose your property, and then negotiate the best terms for it, and then ultimately oversee the whole transaction from start to finish.
So everything you do, Liz, and you talked about marketing the home, that ties into which part, market and expose, right? So when you say those 4 pillars, those are your basic bullet points: consult and advise, market and expose, negotiate the best terms, oversee the transaction. Everything you do on the listing side refers to those 4 pillars. So what you want to do is you want to get to where you can articulate that and say that in a way that it's, okay, Leslie. So real quick, so you're the seller, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
what
the
were
agent.
they again?
Sorry, consult and advise,
Yeah.
market and expose, negotiate the best terms, and oversee the transaction. So the first thing I'll say is, Leslie, so may I share with you what I do to sell homes?
Sure.
Great. Thank you for allowing me to do that. So number one, my job is to consult and advise you. It's to take the guesswork out of real estate, right? We're in a very dynamic, competitive market, and it is critical that you have somebody in your corner that can lead you through the process. Number two, my job is to market and expose your property. The good news is you've hired us, and we will expose your property at the highest level. We're going to hire a professional photographer that is going to highlight all the beautiful things you've done with your home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week online. And we are going to expose it not only to the MLS to 2,000 plus agents in the area, but also it syndicates to 200 plus websites, including Zillow, and actually travels internationally to make sure that you get the fullest exposure of your property. Number three, my job is to negotiate the best terms for the sale of the home. Okay. So it is my duty, it is my stewardship to protect your hard-earned equity in your home and to help you negotiate not only up front the highest offer, but also through the process and navigating through requests for repairs and appraisal differences to make sure you walk away with as much money as you possibly can. Number four, my job is to oversee the transaction, right? And overseeing the transaction, most people don't realize that on a national average, every home has to sell twice. And even more than that, from this call today to when we close this transaction, roughly about 150 phone calls take place. So Leslie, would you as a seller like if an agent did any of those items for you? And I screwed up the finish, but you get to the point of what I'm doing. So after you do all your telling, which I said you shouldn't do, you're doing your sound bites, right? You're laying out what your presentation is. The last thing you want to do is what's called a tie down question. So after you give any type of factual information or benefit to the other side, you want to ask them a question. So Leslie or Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would you see any benefits to an agent doing those things for you in the sale of your home? And then I'm going to wait for an answer. And then so I'll ask, because Leslie, we've done this, Liz, from any of those things I shared with you, were there any things that you like, from what I just mentioned?
Right. So I appreciate that you're going to be exposing my home to the public and looking for a buyer. I can tell that's in the process. For some reason, I thought that agents, all they did was just put a sign up. I didn't really understand that there's 150 phone calls from start to finish. So
Yeah.
So that's great.
No, a lot more involved than what most people realize. Thank you for sharing that. And in terms of marketing and exposure, what is it that you expect in terms of marketing? What types of marketing, are you looking for in terms of the sale of your home?
Well,
This, just so you know, real quick, this could get into open houses, the open house conversation, which is an important one to have with sellers. It could get into showing availability, but go ahead, Liz, or Leslie, sorry.
oh, just I know how important it is for a listing to go online. I know a few of my friends were looking for homes to purchase, and they went straight to Zillow. So As long as, my listing or my home goes on Zillow, I'd be happy with that.
Okay, so Zillow is very important to you. And then have you noticed, with the photos online, the difference between some people who go through and just snap pictures with their phones versus when it's done by a professional?
Yeah, it's horrible when I see those dark pictures.
Right. No, it is critical that we highlight it in the best light possible. So, and this is actually a closing technique, Yvette, and Liz, that I use when I'm getting to the point where I can tell they want some time to think about it. They don't want to make a decision and sign the paperwork right then and there. I close on the photographer. So what I'll say is, okay, well, the next steps, if they ask, so what are the next steps? If I can get them to, well, we need to take care of the paperwork, then I go there. If I can tell that they want to look over the paperwork, take the night to think about it, my follow-up will be, hey, let me check with my photographer. She's extremely booked because she's really good at what she does. She'll hopefully have some time towards the end of this week if we're trying to take advantage of this weekend. So let me check with her and I'll get back to you. So then I check with the photographer, I call her back, and then I call the clients back and say, hey, look, she's available at Thursday at 3 o'clock. Does that work for you? They say yes. Once I set that up, I send over through e-signature the listing agreement, and then I send it over, leave it in their court. And I could say, hey, look, I can't book this legally, or I can't do this. I can't represent you until you actually decide who you want to represent you in the sale of your home. Could say something like that. I usually don't have to. They typically sign off on it. I just did this just yesterday, just so you know. So did the same thing. They wanted to look over the paperwork. I revised what I had to with the commission, gave them a small little credit, but still kept it at 5%, 2.5% on both sides. They're going to list and buy with us. So I sent over the listing agreement to them, made the revisions, because on the listing agreement I left with them said 6% commission. Just so you know, Liz, it always says 6% for the total commission, 2.5% to the other side if that's what you guys offer, and then that's 3.5% to your side. If you decide you're going to go down from there, you start at 6, cross the line out, and then you don't always have to go straight to 5. You can go to 5.75. You can go to 5.5. So just know there's ways you can structure it up front. Most people start at 5% and then they have to end up at 4.25 or wherever. You want to start at 6 and then work your way down, right? And again, you don't have to go straight from 6 down to 5, even though this was a referral, another past client referral. So, I knew they knew of other agents, so I guarantee the other agent was doing at least 5, if not a little bit less than that. So it is what it is. But, hopefully that's helpful and kind of gives you an idea. But Leslie, awesome job on remembering the 4 pillars. And then you want to practice those, Liz and Yvette, where you have the pillar and then 2 facts, 2 benefits. I did a little bit more just to kind of give it a little bit of context.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, telling's repelling. So the more I'm talking, the more I'm explaining it, the weaker it gets. The more concise to the point I am, the stronger it is. And then you get straight to, would you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, see any benefit in an agent doing those things for you? If they say, yes, I love it, as they're saying that, they're committing to you, okay? So that's why you share that with them. And I guarantee your competitors aren't doing these things at their listing presentations. You're talking about the most critical things to sell somebody's home, identifying it and showing them what it is that you're doing. Does that make sense? So thanks, Leslie, for bringing that up. I know we got to wrap. We're well over. I told you it'd be more like an hour and a half. So maybe getting close to an hour and 45 now. But glad you guys were able to jump on with short notice. And we'll definitely try to do it. I want to try to get to once a week. I just also know that things are picking up, and we got to finish this year out strong. So if we can kind of play it by ear. At a minimum, I think at least every 2 weeks. So twice a month, we should try to do touch base, do these trainings. But we'll try. We can try just during the week. We'll try on Tuesdays. We'll pick a day, because Yvette knows I'm driving her like a slave over here, working her to the bone, right? So it's been awesome. But hopefully this was helpful for everybody, and we can build on it.
Thank you, Brendan.
No problem. You guys good? All right. Okay, well, I recorded it, so just to make you feel more uncomfortable, Liz, I recorded everything. So I'm going to I'll put it on a public YouTube channel for everybody to see. I'm
You're
just-
welcome.
Always.
Whoa.
we'll put it on a private link, and then I'll share it with everybody after we get it uploaded. It's a big one, so it'll take a little bit. But once that's all done, we'll send it out. So if you guys want to watch any of it, any questions, anything that you have, but we like to record them just moving forward, just so that we use this as training and just learning. We all continue to grow. And I don't know if Yvette has seen me do it yet, but just about every call I get on, I record.
I've seen it.
And I record every time because it's all for training and for my own personal development as well. Especially early on, I would watch them all the time. But my brother's also in the business, or two of my brothers. I have three brothers. Two of them are also new in the business. So I'll send it to them so that they can learn and see it. And everybody grows and learns from this stuff. So I'm not talking about this specifically, but just the videos that I record when I'm on a call, just so people are seeing real life calls and situations on the spot. How do you handle it? You know what I mean? And it's not always going to be this long, complex thing. But if you understand this, you can pick the pieces that you need for that person to get them to where you need to get them to. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I'm about out of breath. You guys good?
Yeah. Oh, one thing, Zillow does the recordings on your calls. So if you get, so if you get a Zillow lead, you go onto their Premier Agent, just the agent hub, and yeah, you can hear your recording. So I did that a lot when I first started. I was like, somebody sound like, oh my god.
That's cool.
So yeah, so Zillow does have that. If in the case that you guys have leads and you take those
Right.
anyway, then they do that.
That's awesome. Cool.
Good.
Sweet, sweet. Well, it was a
Toodles.
pleasure meeting you. Yeah. And
Yes,
we
So nice
better-
meeting you.
we'll try to reconnect again. We'll pick a time and give everybody more than 5 minutes heads up next time. So appreciate you
No
guys.
worries. This is great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Nice
Bye,
meeting you.
everyone. Nice meeting you, Liz.
All right. We'll see you, Leslie.
Bye.
Bye, Liz.
Guys. Bye.